Chapter 5 Southern Sumatra. Archaeology and Art of Sumatra by Robert Heine-Geldern. Archaeology and Art of the Hindu-Buddhist period. Swarnadvipa, the island of gold, i.e. Sumatra, became known to the Hindus at the very latest about the 1st century AD. Probably, Indian colonies have been there about the 2nd century AD, if not earlier, though until now no archaeological traces of these first centuries of Hindu Sumatran history have come to our knowledge. The oldest Hindu Sumatran monument as yet discovered is a stone torso of a Buddha statue which has been found scattered to several pieces near Bukit Seguntang, a hill in the immediate neighborhood of Palembang. Rome has called attention to the fact that the image have been influenced by the South Indian school of Amaravati. According to Mrs. Stella Gramris, who kindly helped me in determining the dates and Indian affinities of the earliest remains found at Palembang and Jambi, if cannot date further back than the second half of the 5th century, but as it is possibly not younger than the 6th century, it may possibly belong to the time before the foundation of the Empire of Srivijaya, the extent of which is traceable only from the 7th century. Other finds known of sculptures made at Palembang may be ascribed to the time of great prosperity of Srivijaya, whose capital must have been situated at about the same spot as the present Palembang. A stone bodhisattva also have been found, too, on the slopes of Bukit Seguntang, and the modern life-size statue of Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, found on the river Musi, are connected with the artistic style of the South Indian kingdom of the Pallava of 7th century AD, thus seeming belong to the first period of Srivijaya's rising power. Three very beautiful bronzes, a Buddha and Avalokitesvara and a Maitreya, belong to the style of Central Java and must date from between the 8th and the 10th centuries, figure 778 CDE. They were found in the Komering River not far from Palembang. Another vine, made of Bukit Seguntang, is a bronze Buddha head with a flower work, figure 26, figure 78 AB. Considering stylistically and iconographically it is quite unique, thus bearing witness to the existence of an ingenious Sumatran style, besides the styles of South Indian and Javanese origin. A point of great interest among the finds of the period of Srivijaya is formed by 4 inscriptions written in Old Malay idiom interspersed with Sanskrit words. 3 of these inscriptions are dated, being the oldest dated inscriptions from Indonesia as yet known, and moreover the oldest existing text in Malay and even Austronesian language in general. The characters are very similar to those of the Pallava kingdom. The oldest of these inscriptions found near Palembang is dated 605 of Sakaira, i.e. 683 AD. It gives details about an important event having happened in this year, but it was not as yet possible to elucidate it completely. By some archaeologists, it is even thought to refer to the foundation of the capital of Srivijaya. The second one, found at Talatuo near Palembang, dates from the Saka year 606, i.e. 684 AD, and informs us of the endowment of a garden by the king, ending with a long Buddhist blessing pranidhana. We may infer from it that the kings of the silent dynasty of Srivijaya, who later contributed so truly to the propagation of Mahayana Buddhism in Indonesia and on the Malay Peninsula, professed this religion in its translated form of Vajrayana as early as the 7th century. By far the largest part of Hindu Sumatran monuments of all times belong to the sphere of the Mahayana. In contrast to Java, Sumatra is able to boast of only very few monuments of purely Shivatic character, and Hinayana Buddhism has not left archaeological traces whatever. Though according to the Chinese pilgrim Yixing, this was the predominant religion till about the end of the 7th century. The third inscription found at Kota Kapur on the Isle of Bangka dates from 608 Saka 686 AD, found and is a proof that this island was the subject to Sriwijaya. It gives tidings a campaign to the king of this country undertook against Java. A fourth inscription, very similar to the one of Kota Kapur but not dated, has been found at Karang Brahi in the region of Jambi. Besides this, there are few monuments in Sumatra which can be recognized with some probability as belonging to the period of the kings of the Sailendra dynasty. Primarily, we must mention two Buddha statues from Jambi reproduced by Tiadam, whose style corresponds to the North Indian style of the 7th century and clearly is connected with the traditions of Gupta art. Near the remains of a brick building at Simangambat in Mandeling was found several stones ornamented with reliefs, one of them with Kala head. Remains of some temple showing undoubtedly Central Javanese character, dating most probably from the 8th or 9th centuries. Some Shivatic sculptural and architectonic remains of Central Javanese character too, thus also dating from the 8th till 10th centuries, have been found near the river Lematang west of Palembang. In the Batak territory, in the region of Gunung Tua in Padang Lawas, a bronze group dated from 946 Saka 1024 AD was discovered. It represents the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara in his four-armed shape at Lokanatha, Lord of the World, between two taras. For one, the inscription records even the artist name Suya. Though this group was certainly cast in Sumatra, its whole style, as well as the characters of the inscription, show decidedly Javanese influence again. We know by Nepalese manuscript from the 11th century that Lokanatha was highly worshipped in Sumatra by this name, and that one of his sacred images, erected in the capital of Sriwijaya, was famous throughout the whole Buddhist world. Among the various remains of the Hindu Sumatrian period, we must call attention to four beautiful Makara heads found at Kampong Solok near Jambi. One of them bears the date of 986 Saka 1064 AD. As usual, the Sumatrian Makaras, a figure of Vario is standing between the monster's gaping jaws. A prominent group of ruins is to be found in Muara Takos on the upper Kampa River. Remains of brick buildings, among them 3 stupas and a terrace. A standard tower-like stupa is the best preserved of all, figure 79, was assumes from the Nagari characters found on the stud on the small gold plate that these monuments cannot be more ancient than the 12th century. The brick stupa of Tanjung Medang in Upper Padang dates probably from the same time. The marked prevalence of brick buildings as compared with stone architecture, as well as the prominent part of the stupa, are characteristic traits distinguishing Hindu-Sumatrian from Hindu-Javanese art. The sculptures and buildings of the biaras of Padang Lawas belong to the most interesting ones of the island. Biara, from Sanskrit Vihara, i.e. monastery, is the name by which ruins from the Buddhist period are known in Central and North Sumatra, excepting one small secondary temple built of stone. There are only brick buildings. The Biara Sitopayan near Gunung Tua consists in its present condition of two terraces, and between them a little courtyard. Two inscriptions refer to the foundation of the sanctuary. Some details of the ancient Javanese characters rather recall the characters of the Batak script. It may be that the latter originates from these parts. All the other biaras of Padang Lawas consist of walled-in square with the principal temple surrounded by smaller temples, stupas, and terraces in the middle. A staircase in this lower part, flanked by makaras, leads up to the basement of the rectangular cella. The corbelled roofs of two of the biaras of Bahal near Pertibi on the river Pandai are still partly existing. They imitate the form of a stupa and like it were crowned by a seat of honor. The base of one of the biaras were ornamented with brick reliefs representing dancing raksasas and squatting lions. The principal sacred image of the biara number 2 of Bahal yields very interesting information concerning the history of religion. It represents Heruka dancing on the corpse, one of the most terrible gods of Vajrayana Buddhism, who was offered bloody sacrifices, probably even human ones, and among the rites of host worship, the drinking of human blood and eating human flesh play a part. The worship of Heruka formed a point of contact between the Indian and indigenous races, since Padang Laos was inhabited by branches of Batak, by a branch of Batak, and gave impulse to the transformed interpretation of Batak cannibalism into a magic rite of degenerate Buddhism. And just this Buddhist interpretation, though forgotten again in the course of time, possibly was one of the essential reasons why Batak cannibalism was able to survive for so long a period. On account of this obvious traces of late country Buddhism, Bosch assumes that the biaras of Padang Lawas must have been built during the period between King Kertanegara's ascension to the throne of Tumapel Singhasari 1284 AD and the death of King Adiyavarman of Melayu after 1375 AD. For a number of monuments and inscriptions, we may infer that Tantric Kalachakra Buddhism, with all its aberrations, a religion combining Buddhist and Sivaite elements, was predominant in central Sumatra, in Melayu Jambi, as well as in Minangkabau during the above-named period. King Kertanegara of Tumapel Singhasari is Java, invaded Sumatra in the year 1275, and Melayu Jambi became a tributary state to his empire. Now Kertanegara was fervent partisan of Kalachakra Buddhism, so that if this religion was not actually brought to Sumatra by the Javanese invasion, its development was certainly much favored by it. Near Sungai Langsat, on the left bank of the Batanghari River, where Western Neck discovered a stone bearing an inscription, obviously the base of some idol. The characters of the usual Javanese Kawi characters, and the language is Kawi is interspersed with numerous Malayisms. The inscription records that in the year 1208 Saka, 1286 AD, King Kertanegara ordered an image of Bodhisattva Amogapasa Lokeswara, gift of Prince Wiswarupa, to be brought from Java to Sumatra by 4 dignitaries and to be rated at Dharmasraya on Batanghari to the gratification of the whole population of Mauliwarman, King of Melayu, then vassal to Kertanegara. The image is representing the Bodhisattvas surrounding the Yayani Buddhas, Taras, and other Buddhist deities, was brought some 60 years later to Rambahan, another place in the Batanghari region, where it is still to be seen, conforming to the period and the land of its origin. Its style is the same as that of the Empire of Singhasari. Probably, it is essentially a replica of the principal image of Candi Jago in East Java, and the latter being portrait of King Kertanegara's father, King Vishnuwardhana. King Vishnuwardhana. Whose sepulchral temple Candi Jago had been in the shape of Amoga Pasa. Another image found at Sungai Langsat is a more than life-size statue of the god Bhairava. This sculpture too belongs to the sphere of Singhasari art and was probably brought from Java to Sumatra about the same time as the Amoga Pasa. The doctrines of Tantric Kalachakra Buddhism seem to have fallen into fertile soil in Sumatra. This is disclosed by the inscriptions of King Aditya Varman who ruled Melayu and Minangkabau during at least 3 decades. He ascended the throne probably between 1343 and between 1347 and died sometime after 1375 AD. In the year 1347 AD, he ordered Kertanegara statue of Amogapasa to be taken to Rambahan, established it in a Buddhist sanctuary there and had it sanctified anew. By his orders, a detailed record of this was engraved on the back of the image. It has been deciphered by Cairn and interpreted by monks. From this, as well as from other inscriptions, we learn that the king was ordained to the highest than 3 orders. The Sanskrit language used in the inscriptions is exceedingly faulty and deficient, and obvious sign of the decay of culture since the 7th century, at which time Srivijaya had been a center of Buddhist learning to which Chinese pilgrims traveled from afar to study Sanskrit. Finally, we may mention that the close relations between Sumatra and South India, especially with Chola Empire, leading to the foundation of a Buddhist sanctuary of South Indian soil by a king of Srivijaya about 1000 AD, and on the other hand, to the temporary conquest of Srivijaya by a king of Chola in 1023 AD, have left archaeological traces in Sumatra. For instance, an inscription was spotted at Lobutuan near Barus, written in Tamil, dated from 1088 AD and originating from a South Indian commercial partnership. From the 13th and 14th centuries, we have a few inscriptions written in South Indian characters, and in one of the viharas of Padang Lawas a mere bronze image of decidedly South Indian origin was found. Mohammedan archaeology and the art of the Muslim peoples. Other Muslim monuments are, with few exceptions, particularly limited to tombstones, many of which were not even made in Sumatra, but were imported from Jambi in Gujarat, India. From an historical point of view, the inscriptions are of great value. Some of these tombstones date as far back as the first period of Islam in Sumatra, as for instance the stone of Sultan Malik as-Saleh, the founder of the Empire of Samudra Pasir, who died in 1297 AD. Besides the tombstones, a few older cupolas in Aceh ought to be mentioned, as well as a curious little building at Kota Raja Aceh, the Gunungan, i.e. mountain, erected by Sultan Iskandar Thani 1636 until 1641 as a sort of priest's tower. Here, I ought to give at least a brief sketch to a more recent arts of the Mohammedan peoples of Sumatra, such as weaving, metalwork and carving in horn, ivory or wood. However, although much valuable work has been done by Dutch ethnologists concerning the technical rudiments of these applied arts, no preliminary historical research in style has as yet been done. It is naturally quite impossible to attempt any such work in this limited space, as true research who have to reach far beyond Sumatra. I shall have to content myself, therefore, with the statement that the stone of ornamental themes of applied art as practiced among the Mohammedans of Sumatra, though belonging seeming to a single style only, is in reality a conglomerate of elements of heterogeneous origin. This basis is still in many a case the old Bronze Age Dunson style, as is easily conceivable, for instance, from the plated bands and S-shaped double spears so prominent in the art of Minangkabau figure 76. Later on, Hindu-Javanese, and finally Muslim motifs were simulated, and even Chinese influence may have had its say in the development of Malay ornamentation. Special attention ought to be bestowed on the architecture of Minangkabau. The Minangkabau house, the Minangkabau's house form is related to that of the toba and to the houses of figuring of the oldest bronze drums of Dongson culture. The shape of the roof is repeated, though not in the vertical direction as with the karo, but the different parts are stuffed into each other horizontally. Figures 31, 33, 34. This form of roof is also to be found in Cambodian and Siamese architecture. There is certainly a connection between the latter and that of Minangkabau, but it is not possible as yet to ascertain whether this sort of structure originated in Indochina or in Sumatra. Sometimes both ends of a Minangkabau house will graduate to a kind of oriel, thus giving it the curious aspect of sailing boat to the Middle Ages with fore and aft castle. The walls are lavishly decorated with scroll motifs and other ornamentals, and, mostly of Indian or Mohammedan origin, though in a few cases still retain the ancient rudiments. The application of glass mosaics in wall ornamentation again intimates some sort of connection between Central Sumatra and Siam. The Balayo communal houses are very similar to the domestic dwellings, but the wings only are enclosed by walls, the middle part being left open, figure 34. Among the most charming buildings are rich granaries built on piles, with richly decorated walls standing outwards and a saddle roof lowered in its middle, figure 31 left. Very little research have been done with regard to the old Sumatran mosque built of wood. It seems that throughout the greater part of the island, at least in Aceh and Minangkabau, the Indian form of roof ascending in steps like the roofs of the Meru of Bali and of Burmese monasteries and temples has been adapted to Mohammedan architecture. Conclusions. Let us attempt to sum up the different cultural strata we were able to ascertain. 1. The late Paleolithic flake culture is bearers, being probably Bedouins. The late Paleolithic hand axe culture, its bearers being Papua Melanesioids. 3. The Proto-Neolithic elements of the later phases of the hand axe culture implements with rough ground edges, rubble axes, introduced perhaps by Proto-Malaysians. The earlier Neolithic civilizations, still recognizable in Enggano and in the Mentawei Islands, though not traceable as yet archaeologically. 5. The late Neolithic quadrangular edge culture, Fekad culture, which was brought from further India to Sumatra by the original Austronesians, Malayo-Polynesians, probably between 2000 and 1500 BC, quadrangular and big axes. The technique of saving stone, cultivation of rice and millet, cattle raising, outrigger boat, megaliths, ancestral figures, head counting, etc. The late Bronze and early Iron Age Dongson culture, which reached Sumatra probably before or about 300 BC, socket, bronze shells, daggers and lenses of bronze of our iron, bronze drums, spear and plate band ornaments, figurative painting, and probably the form of the toba and karo houses. It was brought to Sumatra probably by merchants and colonies from the northeast, northeastern Indochina, Tonkin, Annam, and South China. The Chinese influence of early Han times coincides partly with the later places of Dongson culture, stone graves, Pasema sculptures, the latter being closely related to the plastic art of the early Han period. 8. The Hindu-Sumatran culture which took birth at the very latest during the 2nd century AD. Under the influence of Hindu colonists and Brahman and Buddhist missionaries, continual influences from different parts of India and Greater India, Java, and probably Cambodia, Siam, and Burma, lasting at least till the 14th century AD. 9. The Mohammedan culture, prevalent in North Sumatra from about the middle of the 13th century, in the greater part of the island since the 15th or 16th centuries, transmitted by Mohammedan traders from India, especially from Gujarat, and later also from Arabia. Then, the later Chinese influences, dating back at least as far as the end of the 14th century AD. The provisional list, no doubt, falls far short from the actual facts. For instance, there must have there must have existed in Sumatra ancient Paleolithic cultures not yet known to us. Bronze Age influence too probably reached the island before the Dongson culture, but we were not as yet able to prove this. Of course, we must not imagine that the culture strata enumerated above have each been brought to Sumatra by a single strictly circumscribed cultural or invasional wave only. On the contrary, we deal here with exceedingly complicated proceedings. This will easily be confirmed by the investigation of such civilizations as reached Sumatra in historical times. Certainly, Sumatra first came into touch with Hindu and Hindu culture at the very latest during the first 2 centuries AD. But from this time, the intercourse between India and Sumatra never wholly ceased. I need only point out the Buddhist establishments founded at Nalanda in the 9th century at Negapatam about 1000 AD by kings of Srivijaya, reproduction of Sumatran Buddhist idols in a Nepalese manuscript of the 11th century, the prominent part played by Srivijaya in the history of later Buddhism, and the manifold traits of Buddhist activity and learning spreading from Sumatra to China, India, and even Tibet. The invasion of Sumatra by a king of Kola in the 11th century, the Tamil inscription of Lubutua from the year 1088 AD, and the Davidian tribal names still to be found among the Batak are not also to be forgotten. So we can safely assert that Sumatra has not only once been colonized by Hindus, but that, owing to more than 1,000 years of close connection, it became an integral part of the greater Indian cultural area. It is natural that other cultural elements reach Sumatra from the Tamil region and Malabar than those that came from Bengal, and again influences coming from South India in the time of the Kola kings of the 11th century must have differed remarkably from those of the Pallava period in the 7th. Moreover, material as well as spiritual influences did not take their way always directly from the Indian mother country, but were also transmitted by ways of various Indian colonies, especially by Java, thus being subjected more or less to changes, and assimilations before reaching the island. The history of Sumatran Buddhism is indeed the characteristic of the continual participation of Sumatra in the development and transformation of Indian religious life. Consider the tremendous difference between 7th century Buddhism, when Yi Tsing came to visit the island, and the Buddhist scholar Sakya Kirti wrote his books in Srivijaya. It was the type of prevalence of Hinayana, Mahayana, which like with slight tantric influences just beginning to gain ground, and the extreme tantric Kala Chakra Buddhism during the days of Ratnagara, Malivarman, and Aditya Varman in the 13th and 14th centuries. Similar historical layers are discernible in connection with Sumatran Islam and Mohammedan culture, where Islam was imported from China, when Islam was imported from India, more accurately from Gujarat, and owing to this had primarily a more or less Sikh thing, it was subjected from the 7th century to steady increasing Arabian Orthodox influence. Right? With the Gayo, we even find some decidedly Ottoman weapons and garments, a sign that even Turk influences have pushed far into the interior of the island. We may assume that what we recognize to be valid for historical civilizations will in all probability hold true concerning prehistorical periods, though we are as yet not able to prove it. Could we but discern different substrata of the Neolithic quadrangular age culture, we should perhaps be able to resolve many an apparent disagreement between archaeological and ethnological results. I need only I need only refer to the fact that we are not yet able to discern a coincide between the distribution of prehistoric cultural layers and such fundamental social forms, as for instance the father right of the Batak and the mother right of Minangkabau. Finally, intending to exclude any possible interpretation, I want to assert once more that naturally most of the spiritual and material contributions of foreign origin having developed in Sumatra in original and often even in a very indigenous way. We need only think that we need only think of the artistic creations of Nias and Pasema. We are still at the beginning of archaeological research in Sumatra, but though still an immense amount of field work will have to be accomplished, we may hope that this island, owing to its position in the way primitive man must have taken from Asia to Australia and the South Seas, and on the way for the seafarers of the later periods between India and China, will yield us fact of will yield us facts of most fundamental importance for the story of mankind.